What is consciousness? And what does it mean to truly live life awake? Welcome to Clarity to Consciousness, a podcast where we transcend beyond stereotypes, embracing a deeper understanding. I'm your host, Kristen Griffiths, a fellow seeker on this path. Join me on a journey as we dive into conversations with experts, unraveling stigmas, and expanding our awareness to something profound. This is your invitation to open your mind with me as together we bring clarity to the fascinating complexities of human consciousness. Welcome back to Clarity to Consciousness, where we aim to bring clarity to the complexities of human consciousness. I'm your host, Kristen Leigh Griffiths, and today we're diving into the world of conscious healing after injury, a journey that requires not only physical recovery, but also emotional resilience and a shift in perspective. Our guest today is Tom Foley, the president of Ormaz Specialty Insurance. Tom's story is one of transformation and purpose. As a former flat and stable chase jockey, he knows firsthand the challenges that come with injury. During his riding career, like many athletes, Tom believed it won't happen to me. But when a life-altering leg injury changed his path, he found himself grappling not only with physical healing, but also a heavy mental burden. This experience inspired Tom to dedicate his life to helping others avoid the struggles he faced. Tom believes that every athlete deserves to feel invincible while competing, but also prepared for life's unexpected challenges. Today, I'm so excited to have Tom here to share his journey, the life lessons he's learned, practical advice for embracing conscious healing and protection. Whether you're an athlete, a professional, or someone who's just navigating your own challenges, this conversation is sure to leave you inspired. Tom, I'm so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks, Kristen. Thanks for inviting me in. And thanks, Rudy, for connecting us as well.
Yes, shout out to Rudy Rigsteins. He's an amazing teacher to me and friend to you as well.
He's a great guy, great human being.
Great guy. Well, I am so fascinated to learn more about the life of being a jockey. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience is like?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many things to it. Like, I've been lucky to be at dinner tables with like politicians and actors and stuff, but everybody wants to know about like what racing is like because it's such a dangerous sport. You know, I think they lose 2 to 4, depending, like, average you'll say of 3 jockeys die every year globally, and about 60 end up paralyzed. It's a very, very, very dangerous sport. And but when you're a kid, you don't think about those things. All I ever wanted to do was ride horses. That's all I ever wanted to do. I loved horses. I shouldn't say I loved horses all my life. I have a picture when I was 6 or 7, whenever I was making my Holy Communion in Ireland, and my parents put me on a horse, and I was crying. I did not want to get on the horse. I was like, no, this isn't for me. And but just as I grew older, I just kept being drawn to them, and it's just what I wanted to do. I went to a jockey school run by the Irish Army, and they, you sign up for that when you're 15, anywhere from 15 to 18, and you go and get trained by the army to ride horses. So every summer they bring in about 150 kids throughout the country that want to get into racing, and they put them through trials, and then they select the best 30. So I was lucky enough to get called back to the Racing Apprentice Centre of Education, or RACE, what it's called in Ireland. Out of that 30, I think 14 of us finished the year. The Irish Army in the 90s was pretty tough. The idea behind it, though, was that they wanted to toughen you up, and like we did a lot of physically brutal things that they don't do anymore. But back in the mid 90s, it was like, you got to be tough. You're going to break things. You're going to get up. Like, you have to be, and they kind of condition you a little bit to be able to take the punishment that they know racing will give you. But at that time, nobody knew like the mental side that effect has on people. And there's no like, hey, you're going to fall, you're going to get up, and it's going to be okay. It's like, they use kind of physical force to, like, you knew early that things hurt and that you had to keep moving forward. And clearly that's not the way to teach anybody, but that's just how it was with us and at the time. And you don't realize what that does to you till way later, and I'm sure we'll get to that in a bit. But I was 17 when I came to the US. I answered an ad that was on a racing paper looking for a kid to come ride races, immediate opportunity. So I called the number and the guy said, "Hey, I've already got somebody, but if anything changes, I'll call you back." And about 3 months later, he called me on a Thursday night and said, "Can you be in Dublin Airport Monday morning and we'll fly you to the States?" And I'm like, "Yep." So I went on 3 days' notice, told my parents I'll be back in 2 weeks. 27 years later, I was still there. But I rode my very first races that weekend, and I had the highs and lows of it. But the very first time I rode in a race, I knew this was for me. And I just loved it. There was something that you can't describe to people about how fast things happen. Like, it's not something you can prepare for. It's not something you can practice. It's like you can drive a car on your own really fast and it's like really cool. But then when you drive a car with like 20 people looking for the same space, and it's so much different. So you either love it or you just can't take it. And then I had my first fall on the same day. And you never know what a fall in a race is going to be like. And I even remember the name of the horse. The horse's name was Be a Contender. And he didn't do anything. I just fell off him. He jumped. He landed quicker than I just was prepared. And that was inexperience. And I got a fall. I fell off the side of him. And but I realized, like, that's not that bad. I can take this. And then everything through that life was teaching myself what I can take. And I started out riding with some guys that at that time were definitely more talented than me. But when they have falls in races and you have like 10 or 15 horses coming over you and you feel them, like the
Wow.
metal on the shoes hitting the back of your helmet, or, hitting your vest, like we wear like little bits of padding, you find out who you are pretty quick down there. And you either can take it or you can't. And I knew I could take it. And, it led me down that road. But I think that's partly because of the training that we got in Ireland, of you have to be tough, you have to be this, you have to be that, and you don't complain. If you get broken, you get back up. And I can understand the reasoning behind that, but I would never want anybody to go through it myself. I wouldn't want to see anybody have to go down that road, because when you do those kind of things, you start to build blocks in your mind, and you can block out pain, you can block out people's opinions, you can block out all anything you choose in life you want to block out, you can block out. When you get really badly hurt, you understand, all right, I'm going to get through this. I can block out what caused it. My focus is on getting back. But there comes a point then when you start to run out of blocks, and then you have all these walls built in your head that you don't realize at the time. Like, I was a 17-year-old kid when I had my first really bad fall. My heart stopped. I crushed my sternum. I had a foot go through my jaw. I was in a coma for 12 days, and I was revived on the course by a vet called Doug Berry, a veterinarian. And I've actually become friends with his son in later years. But and the horse that I was on, got killed in the fall. It was just one of those ugly things that sometimes happens in races. And I don't remember any of it. I just remember briefly there was a doctor had his finger like through my jaw because I had a big hole. But again, all I wanted to do was get back, because at that time I was just 2 years out of the apprentice school where we learned to ride. And you don't know anything about head injuries. You don't know anything about what the long-term effects of concussions. You don't know anything about anything. You're just focused on getting back. And then there's other things, like there's the culture shock of coming from Ireland. I was a very, very quiet kid. And then I kind of realized early that, like, quiet doesn't get anywhere. You have to be loud, and you have to be seen, and you have to become this personality. And when you're not used to dealing with whether it's a little bit of fame or people like you because of what you do, not because of who you are, that's a confusing world itself. And you begin to realize, like, I'm going to play this character because the character, they'll never hurt the character, and pain will never hurt the character. So you become this personality that's doing this sport. And then at some points in life, like that personality can take over, and it becomes your defense mechanism. From, like, when I got hurt, my parents didn't have passports and they didn't have the money, to be honest with you, to come and see me in the hospital. So I remember when I did wake up, I was there on my own, and you're in a foreign country, you don't know anybody, nobody's coming to visit you, and you just get to, like, I'm on my own in this, and you just realize, like, whatever I do from here on out, nobody's going to hurt that guy. Whatever they get from here on out is going to be the wall. I didn't really quite get it at the time, but I really, really, because wasn't that smart. I'm still not that smart. I just,
Oh,
but at the time I realized like that's how I protect myself, and that's what
yeah.
your body does and what your mind does. And you don't start to break down walls till later in life because you don't stop. I was having a conversation this morning about like my kids, and my kids are like, my twins are 22 and Kieran is 20, but I didn't grow up with them because like we got married very young. We had the twins, and then I was always gone. If I wasn't right in the US, I was in New Zealand or Japan. I was always gone. And when you add the weight constraints that jockeys have to deal with, like it's not even pounds, it's ounces.
Wow.
You
What you're restricted to a certain weight? That's like it's like wrestling,
Oh
kind of.
yeah, but see, wrestling is for one event, one weekend, or whatever it is. Racing is every day, 7 days a week. You're traveling
Oh my
somewhere,
gosh.
and you're in this box. And as you get older and you get bigger, it gets harder to. Your body starts to fight you, and I've done everything from running in sweatsuits. I used to ride in the mornings in the summer with the surfing suit, the wetsuits underneath my clothes. You'd lose 4 or 5 pounds in the heat. And then I was
Mm.
taking, laxatives. And then on top of that, I was bulimic. It was the only way that I could keep my weight down to like 109, 110 pounds. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah, every jockey's room at the time had what's called heaving bowls or flipping bowls, which were basically a square toilet with handles, and like they had a wider drain so like people could just throw up in them. And that's how it was condoned. Like that was commonplace throughout racetracks all the way through you know I think the last one I saw was in the like 2015, 2016. They started to kind of take them out of tracks. But before that, there'd be guys lining up to do it. Like you'd be waiting 3, 4 deep to go in and take your turn. And that was common. So when you add up physical pain, dehydration, you know, the things you do to your body, like you just create this cauldron of what a fucked up person I am.
Wow.
You don't realize it till you get older, and then you have relationships that don't work, and you have things that don't work. And like on a racetrack, you can control certain things. Like I know I can squeeze one guy, and I know how he's, people's personalities. Like I know if that guy might not be the bravest. If I put a little pressure here, he's going to go that way, and I can go straight. Like you know how to manipulate things in a
Mm.
race, and you can control certain things. And sometimes you're okay
Mm.
with being out of control, but then when you can't control physical pain, and you start to dive into that, and like you're taking tons of painkillers, or you're using alcohol, or you're using all these different things, you can't. Getting past that is almost impossible. Getting into the mental side of it is, you don't even get to a point where you can consider that, because your need is how do I quiet the physical pain, and
Yeah.
that was a whole journey in itself,
Oh my gosh. I have so many questions. That's incredible. First of all, you said you're not a smart guy, but I think you're a lot smarter than you probably give yourself credit for. So I have to say that. And brave. And I cannot believe that people put themselves through that. Like, what was it about riding that made it worth all of that for you?
There's no better feeling than the first time you go fast on a horse. Like it's just this sense of freedom. I can even tell you the name of the horse. The first time I really let one loose was a horse called Mile a Minute. And he was a really kind horse, but really talented. But a guy called Mickey Flynn trained him when I was only 15, and he was the one I got to really first let one loose and like feel what that power was like. And it was, you can't describe that to somebody. It's just like there's a freedom in that you can never replicate anywhere else, or you just feel this power under you. And then as you get older and you get onto different types of horses, and better quality and really
Mm.
talented horses, like you can see the differences in them. They're no different than like professional athletes. Like they have crazy acceleration, or they can think quick. Like I've often had people ask me, like, are horses intelligent? And like horses are so intelligent. I always say it's like riding into battle. Like if we all see those movies that, like, the knights in shining armor and they're all going forward, but those guys aren't carrying their armor and their swords and their shields themselves. Like the horse is doing it. Like those horses will go to war for you. They'll lay down their lives. They'll give you
Mm.
everything that you ask and more, and sometimes too much. And sometimes your job is to protect them as much as anything. That's not something you learn till you really get a lot more
Yeah.
seasoned. But riding a horse to me just was the biggest sense of freedom. Then the first time you jump, and then the first time like one they do things like it brings you to a place like you can never quite fully describe. There's things that like horses give you and feelings you'll never replicate in life. I started off with a love of horses because I didn't quite
Mhm.
understand racing, and you can never understand it until you do it. But I think towards the end of my career, when you're dieting and you're doing all these things to your body, living on painkillers, living on laxatives, bulimic, you begin to resent your dance partner. And part of me then obviously got to resent the horses, and because I'm like, all right, why am I in this box, this self-made prison? It took me a long time to, I realized at the time, like horses were like, especially in the US, there's a lot of drugs in race, and horses get a lot of things, legal painkillers, whatever, but like it's a lot of stuff that are not legal too. And then you realize like they're in as just much as pain as you are, and there you are strapped together going out and doing this, and you kind of lose the passion for it. But also, it took me a long time to just step back and realize like that I got into it because I love the horses, and
Mhm.
I'm lucky now I can go and ride and I can go and do things, and I just have this different appreciation for the animal, for what they are, for what they give, when I'm removed from the professional side of it. That it's, you want a dance partner you can have fun with, and you want a dance partner you can listen to and you can engage with, and you can do all these things. But you don't have that when you're riding and you're in that competitive, and it's dangerous and it's fast and it's all these different things pushing on the outside. You lose that side of you that's just happy to be there. And like, I'm very blessed that I got it back. And I think about a lot of guys that I've lost, friends that have like taken their lives and in different ways, will never get to experience that feeling. So that gives me
Wow.
another reason to appreciate the things I get to do on a daily basis.
Yeah. Wow. That's really powerful. You had a pivotal moment with a leg injury. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Yeah, I shattered my leg in 2010, 11, and that was the end of it for me. I just stopped riding on the flat. I got it's kind of a long story, but I got cast in a Disney movie by accident. I went to this place looking for they wanted jockeys for the racing scenes. So I was like, oh, that'd be kind of fun, something different to do. And I went into the wrong place. And the lady asked me, "Are you here to read?" And I didn't know any difference. So I said, "Of course." And then she said, "Do you have your sides?" I didn't know what that meant. And I said, "No, I left everything in my car." So she hands me this little part of the script. So that's what a side was. I didn't know that. Now I do. So anybody out there wondering, that's what it means. And I read the thing, and she's like, I think she could tell I'd never seen it before. She says, "Well, you don't look like the guy for that part, but you might suit this other part. You want to read for that?" And I'm like, "Sure, I'm here. Why not? Let's do it." And anyway, long story short, they gave me the part.
What movie is this and what
Uh,
part was it?
Secretariat, the Disney film about Secretariat, and I played a guy called Jimmy Gaffney, and so it was fun. But a lot of my scenes were one on one with John Malkovich, and they wanted me to have lunch with him. So like, you're not like, holy God, I'm riding up on a horse and there's John Malkovich. Something strange happened. There was, they have the makeup crew, the guys that do all your stuff for camera. I'd never worn makeup before, knew nothing about it. And the guy, I can't remember his name, but I knew he was an ex-Marine, but he was the guy doing the makeup. And he said, "Man, all you got to do is not cry because it wouldn't mess it up." Because my scenes were all outside and it was raining, so sometimes there was a lot of things getting changed. Things I don't know about movie sets, but things can change and at any given time. So anytime you throw up, you automatically cry. Like your eyes just tear up. Like, because
Right.
when you do it like we do it, you're just conditioned to get everything out. So you're going to the depths, and that always makes your eyes run. And so I'm sitting there having lunch with John Malkovich, and then I'm like, I can't not eat, and then I'm hungry anyway. But usually I could go back and just get rid of it, what we call it. And I couldn't because I didn't know when I was going to be called up to do something. And I remember calling my dad, and he's like, "Well, how about you just don't do it?" And I never really talked to my dad about a lot of those things because, again, being Irish, we're not conditioned to talk. We'll get into that a little bit later on, I'm sure. But 2 or 3 days of like just not throwing up, and I'm like, man, I feel good. I feel better. Like, if I'm going to do this, I got to do it a different way. And I put on a bit of weight, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go back steeplechase racing, which is where you race over jumps at the same time. The weights can be a bit heavier, and you don't have to do the same things to your body. Right as I was starting back out doing that, I had a horse flip over on me, and ran through a rail, and I snapped my leg off it. And I was really, it's funny, like you get used to getting hurt, like you either get knocked out or, you break bones, you're just used to it. And I've seen bits of me sticking out in places and elbows, and, you get used to it, and you just know, like your body tells you when a bone's broke or when it's just a bruise, like what's what. And I was super numb, and I was like, "Man, this isn't good." And I remember coming out of the x-ray, and I just saw the nurse's eyes, and somebody was behind me, and she was just like this, giving it the no. And then I'm like, all right. And then they did like emergency surgery. I mean, I was very lucky I didn't actually lose my leg, because my leg had just basically turned backwards right at where the ankle, and just both bones shattered and everything. Like it just basically completely snapped, compound fracture. Um, and then again, my mind is always like, I got to rush back. I got to, the primal or ignorant side here is like, I'm going to push through this and I'm coming back, and that's it. And then it just couldn't heal. And the screws that are on the inside of my leg, I think because I kept moving, they were moving, and I would find them sticking out. And like when I did try come back and ride, I couldn't quite sit the way I used to sit. My leg would just, it never gave me enough feeling or power that I felt like I was actually connected with a horse. And then the way the screws were on the inside just made me always feel loose, and I just couldn't quite get to where I wanted to be. And if you're not quite right, you can't play that game, because you will get killed. It's not getting hurt, like you'll get killed. And that was the end of it. And then I came back. I mean, I rode a few winners and a handful of races, but I just wasn't. I was like a shadow of what I was, and that was very, very hard to take. And that led to a lot of other things. I mean, like you just in Ireland, growing up, nobody ever thought about depression, or like that's a thing for crazy people. Like that's something that happens to other people. Same way with getting hurt, getting killed, it happens to other people. And I think with all the years of what I did to my body and all the broken bones, and I was depressed. And what do you do then? Then you're taking painkillers and you're drinking, and you're just an asshole, and you're never happy. And it just that went on for years. I mean, I went through different relationships, and nothing worked. I mean, I was always just angry, because I lost what I thought defined me, and I couldn't find anything else where I felt like I had any input on anything. It's just like that, who I thought I was, or who I had defined my life as, was gone. I took it out on other people, and I was never happy. And I didn't even know what really happiness was, because I defined it by winning, or that was real success. And, I got into insurance because when I got hurt, the policy that I had didn't cover me, because there was all these loopholes. And I'm like, man, how many guys are out there doing this? Like, this is insane. Like, we don't even have real coverage. Like, so when you're hurt and you have like kids to feed or bills to pay, you have nothing coming in, because jockeys don't get paid a salary. You get paid per race. There's no safety net. There's no, hey, if you're out injured, like, we'll take care of you. There's nothing. You're independent contractors. You're on your own. And I left school at 14. I went off to become a jockey. My education was always on the back of a horse. And anyway, I figured out how to become an insurance agent, and got my license. And then I was like, all right, well, I know all these jockeys, and I know that there's nothing out there protecting them. Let me figure out how to do it. And I looked in the US, there was nothing there. Got connected with people in Lloyd's in London, and we created some policies. And thank God I spent 2 years on the road in a camper van driving around to every racetrack, to educate guys and just say, look, here's my story, here's what happened, and we need better protection. And we created a good policy that a lot of the guys today use, and it does protect guys. And I've gotten a lot of calls and become friendly with a lot of guys, because there's a lot of jockeys. But I would have lost my home, I would have lost my marriage, I would have lost this if I didn't have something here. It's big time needed. So the insurance thing was a good way to just keep me balanced a little bit. But then I think, like, as a jockey, you're always looking for a hole or a gap or a different position. And I remember I was working for a trainer called Bruce Miller, and I even remember the name of the horse. The horse's name was All Gong. Very, very good horse. He was really big, big black horse. He was beautiful. But they did stem cell therapy on him, on his tendon, and it worked, and he came back and he was really, really good. So I was like, so I knew stem cells worked. And I always started thinking then, well, why aren't we giving athletes stem cells? Because like it fixed the horse. And he went on to be successful, but he also went on to just be a regular horse and live a life like out in the field and doing stuff. Like, why can't we do that for athletes? And like, even though it was a very naive thought at the time, it's like, why can't an athlete have a happy life when they're done? When you do a physical sport, you get punched in the head or kicked or you fall off horses and whatever. Like, why can't you have a life after the fact without being in pain? So I went off on a little journey of like visiting clinics and trying to figure out where stem cells were available. And I went to Panama and I went to Colombia, and then I came to Costa Rica. And I just felt like I connected with the people in Costa Rica really well. And they never made me feel stupid about asking questions, because like some people, I don't know, you know, when you talk to people and you ask a question and they're like, roll their eyes, or like they don't want to
Yeah.
give you the information. I
Right.
find
And
that
you
kind
feel
of stuff.
and you feel like silly for asking
Yeah,
the question.
yeah.
Yes.
But if you
So you
don't,
don't ask the questions.
yeah, exactly. And if you don't know, you have to ask. But I just found they were very different in Costa Rica. They like, I'd ask and they'd be like, almost like they give you, like you ask like, what time is it? And they say, hey, we're going to show you the time, but also we're going to show you how the watch works. It was like really, really interesting
Mm,
stuff. I mean, they were
thorough.
great. So then I'm like, God, I didn't ask enough questions. I should have asked more. And I called a friend of mine in New York. He was a dentist. I said, hey, you want to go to Costa Rica a few days? And you could ask some questions for me. So he came down and he said, man, these guys are legit. You're okay here. So I called another friend of mine, Mike Smith, who's actually here with us this week, and last guy to win the Triple Crown, like one of the best jockeys of all time, a Hall of Famer. And Mike was very good to me when I was young. And pretty much all the way through my career, if I needed advice, I could call Mike or ask him something. And it's funny, I could always ask him about racing, and I never thought about asking about life advice because, again, not something
Mm,
we ever thought about. But I knew Mike's injuries, and I was like, all right, well, if it works for him, it'll work with me. So we went and did it together. And we both had this immediate, like, what did they just give us? Like, I feel like a new person. It was crazy. And I'll never forget it. We actually talked about this the other day. He's like, man, if I can just get one more good year. He was 55. If I can just get one more good year, man, this would be good. This will help me. He said that again the next year. He said that again the next year. He just said it again on his fourth visit here. Realizing like what they can do for his body. He's 59, still competing at the very, 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 very top of his game. This place
wow.
just changed. So coming here for a mission of like, how can we help other people, and like what can we do about giving people a life after racing? I got my own life back, and I started doing things, running and getting fit. And next thing, when you stop hurting, you stop needing to take things that mask pain. So you stop taking painkillers, and then eventually you realize like, wow, I'm making this investment in myself with these stem cells. Like I don't want to do anything to mess them up. So I started eating healthier, and I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped doing all these different things that I would use to mask where I was in life or the pain I was going through. And even pain I didn't understand. Like I always, you always think physical pain is like, oh, a broken leg or this bone is sticking out. Like that's what we're used to. But you don't realize like all the other places you're in pain until the main ones go away. And then you're like, as you start to address the other ones, that goes away. And then you're just left with yourself. And then that becomes a journey of like, what's going on up here? And that again was its own journey of, all right, I've dealt with all these other ones. What's going on between the years? And that became a very, very interesting journey on its own.
Wow. So you had quite a journey from injury to health. I'm just going to kind of summarize what I heard. You got hurt. You struggled with that. You went through an ego death because you essentially had to quit everything that you did that you felt gave you value to who you were, and really create a new identity to yourself. And it sounds like you found purpose in the work that you were doing, helping athletes with their coverage for insurance, which is a really noble thing to do. And I'm sure it's really helped a lot of people. So I hope you feel really good about that. And then from there, you looked into finding your own healing journey and you modeled it after the work that was done on horses through stem cell therapy. Yeah, I was like trying to find the word. And so that led you to Costa Rica, and that's where you are now. Is that where you are right now?
That's where I am right now. And it's funny, like I left Ireland when I was so young. I was 17. I left on my own. So I never really felt like the US was never really my home. I just stayed there. I bounced around different tracks and different places, and I kind of feel like I lived a million lives in my time there, but it was never really like, I want to be here forever. But when I go back to Ireland, I always felt like a stranger because so many things had changed since I'd left. I just had this feeling like when I came to Costa Rica, I'd get happy. And when I'd leave, I'd get sad. I just would like, oh man, I love this place. I just kept coming back. And then beginning of 2023, I just said, you know what, I can do all my work over the phone. I'm going to go to Costa Rica and just, write a book and, hang out. I loved it there. And I made the move. I just said, you know what, I'm doing it. And I've done that. And I love being here. I love exploring. I just feel like this is probably the first place in my life or my adult life that I didn't feel in physical pain. And I feel like whether it's the country and I know it's the medicine and all these different things, but I just feel like I got myself back here. And maybe this is where I woke up to real life was here. And I just feel like this is where I want to be and where I need to be probably as much as anything.
That's beautiful. So if you come across somebody who's on a similar path that you are, whether they're a jockey or an athlete or just somebody who got in a car accident and is dealing with injuries and pain, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would tell everybody first thing is stop hiding the pain because as soon as you start hiding one thing, you'll start hiding other things. So you have to stop hiding the pain. And I would definitely talk to people because it's one thing I've learned in all these journeys is that like you got to talk to people and people can never understand you unless you actually talk and unless you actually say what you're going on and like being taught to hide things, being taught like you got to be tough or you got to be this, like no, you got to be a human. And I think that's something the world needs to get back to doing itself, is just start being human, start to look at people like everybody needs help. Let's talk to people. You'd be amazed the people I've met here that just want somebody to talk to, like people that come in and out for different injuries or different things they're dealing with. But as soon as you start talking and are a little bit vulnerable, you'd be amazed what people share and want to share and feel like they can unleash. And that in itself is a beautiful thing. And I think, but we all have that ability to do that for somebody else, people in our lives. And we need to get past this idea of, oh, I wonder what they'll think. You'll never know unless you do it. Just start talking. And I think that once people start talking and listening and realize like there's a beautiful balance in life, nothing's ever going to be always perfect. Nothing's ever going to be always shitty. So there's a really cool place in the middle that you can like. There's a great life there. Like the best jockeys only win 20% of the time. So 80% of your life you're losing. You get used to that. But it's like the good times don't last, the bad times don't last. Just find a spot in the middle and be happy and talk and live. And you'd be amazed of how many people just want to be there in the middle with you. And that's a really cool thing. It's almost like the US, like people can be really very far right, very far left, but there's a really cool spot in the middle where you don't want to hurt your neighbor, you don't want to see your neighbor hurt you, you want to talk to your neighbor, you hope your friend has a good day, and vice versa. Regardless of anything, you just want to be a good human. So my advice is that just talk to people. You'd be amazed what happens.
Absolutely. Well, that's beautiful. What about for, healing the physical pain? It sounds like you're a big advocate for stem cell therapy. Any other tips or tricks that have helped you feel better?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like I think that eating healthy was obviously the first one and understanding what I'm putting into my body. I spent years that my body was my only way of making a living and I abused it in every way you could, from physically beating it off the ground and breaking bones to painkillers and other kinds of pharmaceuticals to a lot of drinking to like a lot of things all the things you don't want to do, I did them. I think that start to appreciate yourself and start to look in the mirror a little bit and go, you know what? I like you. And other people like you, and that's okay. And then go out and start to like yourself a little bit more. And as soon as you start to like yourself, you learn as you go along, you start to love yourself and realize that's not a bad thing. It's not arrogance or egotistical, because you can love yourself, which means I just don't want to do any more harm to myself. And I realize that I have one body and one life, and that whatever I do today, I want to make the right decisions to give my body the best chance at having a great day and a good life. And then when I'm doing those things, just by proximity, I'm affecting the people around me in a positive way. This the good part about stem cells are it does work and it's amazing. Like I learned that with the horses, that there's no placebo effect in an animal. Like it either works or it doesn't. So I knew that going in. So like it worked on all gong, and I've seen it on other horses. Like it'll work on me, and it did. But the downside of it is it is expensive, and I think that they're working on trying to make it more affordable for other people, and to try to get it out there. Hopefully, it's the medicine of the future, because I think that sad thing about probably the U.S. the way that it is right now, like there's not money in curing people, there's money in treating people, and we want to get away from the treating people into actually healing people. But I think on a day-to-day choice you can make is be careful what you put into your body. Read labels, understand what's out there, understand what is going into you and how that can have an effect on you and your children. If you're putting all these additives and all this craziness into your kids, of course they're going to be hyper. Of course they're not going to sleep. And if they don't sleep, then they're going to be, oh, you've ADD and you this. There's going to be a pill for that. Like, get off the hamster wheel, start looking at things you can do to heal your body naturally. And then you don't need to go into the chemicals like I did, because I see a lot of damage I did. I've seen it in friends, I've seen people that we were told that's the way to do it. And it's regardless of stem cells, you can eat healthy, you can do these things. That'll decrease the inflammation in your body. That'll help you heal. That'll take away the mental blocks. Start to appreciate yourself and be very, very careful what you put into yourself, because and even if it's people you're around, if you're around eating toxic food and you're around toxic people, you become kind of toxic. Open your eyes to who you're around. Um, Rudy is a classic example. My friend Dana, you got to go see this guy, Rudy. We're doing this thing. You got to come sit with him. And I'm like, I do not want to go and listen to some guy tell me about how great his life is. And I don't want to do it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I was like an argumentative child. I am not doing it. And Dana is one of my best friends. She works here at RMI. And I'm like, she said, we just do it for me. Please stop. You're being a brat. I'm like, so I go in and there's like 30 people in the room, and he starts telling his story, he's talking. It was one of those aha moments of like, I think he's just talking to me. Like, why is all the things he's saying seem to be about me? It was really strange. I was like, why? He doesn't know. Like, how is he saying this stuff? It was so weird. And then I went up to him afterwards. I said, hey, I know you're staying for a couple of days. Can I get breakfast with you? I just want to chat about some stuff. He said, and then he was talking to me the next morning. It was direct, and it was crazy, the conversations that happened and what opened me up to, like, wow, you just need to talk to people. It was the craziest thing. And it's like, he didn't give me any medicine. He didn't give me, hey, take two of these and you'll be good in the morning. We just had this really cool conversation of like, things are going to happen to you in life. You're going to get hurt. People are going to disappoint you. All these different things are going to happen. But on the flip side, look at all these beautiful things that happen, and learn to appreciate the beautiful things. And then you'll just find that the bad things don't have the same effect. And you can't control the outside world. You can't control all these things, but you can control how you adapt to it and how you let it into you. That became Rudy's a really, really good friend now. And and another thing about like how mad the universe is, I was telling two of the girls that work with me this story about like meeting Rudy. 30 seconds later, he texts me, hey, brother, just checking. See, I hope you're having a great day. Cannot make that up. Of like, like, how does that
Yeah.
happen? That it just shows that we're all energy and that we're all connected, and how the universe works and how the world is so small. I want to see people suffer.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm going to wrap up our conversation today with a few questions I ask all my guests. And the first is, what's one takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember about conscious healing?
That you're never stuck in the place that you think you are. and that there's always an answer. And sometimes that answer starts with you, but it can be in anybody around you. And just, if you're thinking about something, let it out in a positive way, and you'd be amazed what you get back.
Beautiful. And if someone's just starting their journey towards an understanding of consciousness, which it sounds like you're becoming more and more aware of as well, what guidance would you offer them?
Just surrender. Just literally stop telling yourself you can't do things, and stop listening to people that tell you you can't do things, and just let it go. And then when you let yourself go and you take a deep breath and you just go, all right, I'm just going to relax, and I'm going to just at least hear what this person or this thing or this presentation, whatever it is. I'm just going to let myself see what happens. And you just relax, and you'd be amazed what you get back and what you absorb. But you just got to drop the mirror, drop the mask, drop all the things that you use to block things away, and just take a deep breath and just be willing to let go of the controls and just see what happens.
And in your opinion, what does it mean to live life consciously?
I think you have a greater appreciation of other people, and you really start to realize that the power of words. And I can look back at a million things I've said that you can't take back. It's kind of like toothpaste. Once you squeeze it out, it's out. So it's hard to put it back in. It's what you do with the toothpaste once it comes out then. So you can find a way to use it. But it's like, understand the power of your words. And once you understand that, then you understand the power of your actions. And then you can just go on this cool ladder that can really make differences into people's lives.
That's so, so helpful. Thank you so much, Tom.
Well, thank you for having me.
I know that you are very open to having people reach out to you. So can you just remind our listeners how can they get connected with you or access more information that we
A
discussed
lot of
today?
people just chat to me on Instagram. It's Tom Foley 1980. And then a lot of people chat to me on that, and I just give them my phone number, and I'm like, hey, I'm happy to chat. I'm always happy to talk to people, because I think that I've been lucky that I got a chance to share my story, even in a small room with people. I feel very, very grateful and honored that people will even take the time to listen. If that helps one person, or they take something away from it that can help them, then job done. And I'm very, very grateful, and I realize that all the things that you go through, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. It sometimes takes you a long time to realize how that actually works, but once you do, you realize that, like, life is beautiful. It's also a gift, and we can make it what we want to make it, and that there are choices. Just try to go out and be positive, and use the gifts and the choices we have to be positive and help others.
Thank you so much, Tom. Your story is so powerful, and I really appreciate you being so open and vulnerable with everything that you've been through. Such a resilient person, and I think that you're going to help a lot of people,
So
um, with the inspiring story that you told us today. So thank you so much, and thank you all to our listeners for tuning in to another episode of Clarity to Consciousness. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with somebody who could benefit from hearing Tom's story. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. It helps us bring more of these empowering conversations to listeners. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Much love, and bye for now.